Blog Talk Radio.
Well, everybody, welcome to Beyond Paranormal Radio. Back here for another week again. We've had an absolutely crazy morning this morning, trying to get everything organised. Unfortunately, Nicole Strickland has had to cancel coming on tonight due to unforeseen circumstances. So we're going to have to reschedule her for another time because we definitely have to have her on. But a family emergency or something has popped up and she's not able to make it. So if anyone feels like calling in, please do call in because I haven't been able to fill her spot. We'll probably end up just playing Carolyn Mitchell, her pre-record that we have because she's from the UK and for some reason people don't like being interviewed at 3 o'clock in the morning. Actually, no, I don't think that at all. I think it's perfectly fine that people don't want to be interviewed at 3 o'clock. I most definitely wouldn't. So, yeah, what I might do is I might play a song, just play a piece of music to start off with. And then if anybody wants to call in during that time, feel free, and we'll have a chat. And then if no one wants to call in, then we'll just play Carolyn Mitchell's interview. And then we'll see how we go from there. Anyway, I'll talk to you after this. right, well, welcome back. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play the Carolyn Mitchell interview. This seems to be playing up a little bit itself on Blog Talks. One of these days, nothing seems to be going right. But we'll see how we go. Thanks for tuning in. I got to get a detail at the start of this interview wrong. One of the issues with reading too many books at one time. But, yeah, you get the gist of that during the interview anyway. So please enjoy.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, our next guest is Carolyn Mitchell. Now, Carolyn has had 40 years' experience within the paranormal and had quite a few horrific experiences. And part of that, she's written Paranormal Intruder, and I'd like to bring Carolyn on now. I've got a lot of questions to ask her. Good evening or good morning, Carolyn.
Good afternoon, Bryce.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon there, is it?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
It's 11, I suppose, yeah. It's late morning.
Oh, okay. It's 10 p.m. here. So we're late in the evening here, and you're midway through your day. Now, Caroline, you've had 40 years experience within the paranormal.
No, I'm afraid I haven't. I didn't know anything about the paranormal really until this happened to us. So this has been going on for over 3 years now, the problems we've encountered. But up until I met my husband, no, it was all new to me, I'm afraid.
It was all new, so no experience whatsoever within the paranormal. So it must have been quite a fright for you when you started experiencing all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
When so this all started happening 3 years ago. What first off started happening in this situation?
Yes. I mean, it started in January 2010. So I suppose it's 4 years now. I mean, the time gets away so quickly from us. But basically, I was working. I'm a police officer, and I was just having an ordinary day at work. My husband called me to say something was going on in the house. He sounded really panicked. He said things are moving by themselves. He said, there's something going on here. I don't know if the house is haunted. And I didn't really understand what he was talking about at the time. I was working. I didn't have time to have long conversations with him, so I had to go back to work, and I thought perhaps he was playing a joke of some kind. So it wasn't until later the day that I checked my messages, and there was lots more messages from my husband panicking, saying, you need to come home, there's something really happening, that I knew it was a bit more serious. So I asked a colleague to come with me and to witness what was happening, because I still wasn't sure. And he came back to the house, and it was all hell broke loose that day, with things being smashed and thrown on their own. It was just so hard to believe. Plates and cups were smashed, things were thrown out of the kitchen cupboards, doors were slamming, noises from upstairs, and pictures taken down off the walls and moved. So we couldn't believe our eyes, really. We just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing that it happened that quick after. Had you only just moved into this residence at that time?
No, it was a brand new house, and it was built, and then we moved in. So we were the first residents. We've been living there for several years, so we couldn't really understand why it happened that day. But as time went on, we discovered it was more to do with my husband than the actual house itself. So it did seem to follow him round, and it did seem to have an attachment to him.
Oh, okay. Did it only ever happen to him, or did it happen to everybody in the house, or?
Yeah, I mean, the unusual thing about this case is the amount of witnesses. We've got over 30 witnesses, many of them police colleagues of mine, as well as friends and family and outsiders that came in to try and help us. So, excuse me. Yeah, so some people would experience what's called contagion, that, after they go home, they'd experience some things happening to them. It wouldn't last very long, but they would have some things happen, especially the paranormal investigators. And, of course, it was also directed towards some of Neil's close friends who spent a lot of time with him, but it was mainly my husband, Neil. Thankfully, nothing happened to the children, which is good because we've got 4 children. So, and when things got difficult in the house, such as fires starting and, when things got out of hand, when knives were being thrown and things like that, we moved out of the house and we stayed with Neil's parents for a while until things settled down.
Right. When after this first experience that you had when your husband was ringing you up constantly, what did you guys actually do after that situation? How did you go about seeking help from there?
Yeah, this was a difficult thing. Usually, in law enforcement, you know how to deal with a problem. You investigate it, you find the source of it, and you deal with it. But with this, it was very difficult because we didn't know where to turn, and that was very hard because we felt very alone. This wasn't a world we were used to. We didn't
No.
know what help was available. We looked up so many different people for help. We looked up the spiritual church. We looked up many priests, paranormal investigators. And it wasn't until we found investigator Mike Hallowell that he was really able to help us and give some explanation as to what was happening in our home. He certainly provided a lot of reassurance, but it took us a long time. We had a lot of people come to our home who couldn't help us, who didn't know what to do. But eventually we got help with, we had an exorcism in the home, but that took a very, very long time. That took over a year to be able to get that up and running, and things have improved since then, thankfully.
Is that Mike? Is he the one who wrote an intro in your book? I think.
Yes, that's right. Mike has several decades experience in the paranormal, and
that might have been where I got the 40 years from.
I imagine. Yeah, he has. Yeah, certainly. And he said this is the worst case he'd ever come across. He'd never experienced anything as bad as this case, and it was very dangerous. But it was very, as time went on, it seemed to change as well. I mean, when we got it out of the house, it would then start to follow my husband about. So we would be in the car with him, or things would happen outside. And even when he went out with his friends, things would happen. And we've got many, many recordings of noises and voices and growls and very clear recordings, which we're adding to our website for people to listen to, which is hard to believe, but it did happen. I mean, we'd have no reason to say otherwise. And certainly, as I said, the amount of colleagues of mine that came out and experienced it as well, it makes it a very unique case in that way.
Yeah. So this activity was happening really, really regularly by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it was very bad. It wasn't constant. Sometimes it would go, and we would think we'd have some respite, and perhaps it had left us, and it would go for a few weeks, but then it would come back again. And when it came back, it seemed stronger than before. So sometimes it would light a lot of fires. We had a lot of fires in the house. We had the fire brigade out, who couldn't understand, how the fire began. Keys would go missing, so the doors would be locked, and we'd be locked inside the house. And then Neil's car that he was driving blew up, went on fire and blew up, and we had to. Thankfully, he managed to get out of the car. But this is documented. This is after I've written the book. But there was a lot of fires. There was a lot of knife throwing, a lot of strange sounds. He was scratched. He was attacked. He felt he was physically punched. And certainly when we were out with our friends, they would feel like these fingers grabbing them and digging into them. And I experienced it as well, where it's very hard to explain, but it would feel like someone grabbing you or touching your skin, and it wasn't a very nice feeling at all, really. But as I say, it seemed to show itself in many forms. I seen a little girl here in the home when I turned around, and she disappeared. But we didn't know what it was, but whatever it was very powerful.
Yeah, how did Mike go about getting to the bottom of exactly what it was that was in your house?
Well, we still don't really know what it was. I mean, lots of people have come forward and said it was a demon. People have said it was a jinn. I think it's your own interpretation, really, of a force outside of us, of a very powerful force. We don't really know. I mean, he did lots of research into the area. But, you research any area, you'll come across suicides and deaths and things like that. There was nothing conclusive that pointed to the area itself. So that's why I think it could be to do with my husband, and perhaps where we live may be an area that helps the activity come through, because I know he's experienced things in the past. He used to dabble with Ouija boards when he was a young child. He didn't take it seriously at the time, but I often wonder if that was just the way it's come in. And so we still don't really know, to be honest. And there was times that it wasn't always terrifying. Sometimes it would actually come across quite childish in its behaviour. And when we were out, it would bang on the table. We could communicate through a series of bangs. It would lift the table off the floor. And, it was just unbelievable what it was able to do. And we had a lot of communication as well with it. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That is very amazing. I'm a demonologist myself, and it's kind of seems every case a demonic case that I do get involved in, or exorcism and the like seems to have some form of link to some divination tool like a Ouija board or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, it could well do. What's strange about it is that you'd lived there for years before all this started up.
Yeah. But even in the previous house we rented, we used to hear whispers. Very, very small little things might happen, like keys would go missing, or the dog would start barking for no reason. But we just ignored it. We didn't think anything of it. But now, thinking back and looking back, I wonder if it had happened before that. But I honestly don't know. But I know we have been told that if we move house, it'll probably still go with us. So there's not really much point in moving out of this home. So
yeah,
we might as well stay put, and that's what we have done. And it's a lot better. I think after a few years now, we've almost started to get used to it, so that fear isn't there. I don't think it's able to feed on the fear as much as it did before, but certainly it did a good job of frightening us when it was at the height of it. I mean, with the water dripping, well, it was yellow liquid dripping from thin air, making the puddle. I don't know if you read that in the book where we had that happen a couple of times. It was quite frightening, and my colleagues and I just rushed to the house to see it, and we just couldn't believe our eyes to see this dripping from thin air. And then these sudden footprints going up the stairs, which looked more like claw prints. I wonder if that was just an attempt really to frighten us more than anything. But who knows? You know, I still don't know. You could drive yourself mad trying to find answers to it. But as I say, I expect you have a lot more experience in being a demonologist. I expect you have a lot more experience in dealing with that than I do. So perhaps you have some answers.
I think there's only so many answers you can get without actually, like you said, you captured a lot of EVPs, and I think you can get a lot of clues from those EVPs. What sort of EVPs were you catching? Well, was obviously Mike was doing it. What sort of EVPs were they catching?
Yeah, I mean, very clear growls. Very low guttural growls. It would say "get out." It would say "I want it back," and it would say, well, Neil's name. It said my name and other people that were with us, and some very strange sounds like dogs barking and babies crying, and just bizarre, some very bizarre sounds as well, which we captured. But yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense really.
That is quite strange out of what was a brand new house. Like, I'd understand if there was a lot of residual sort of energy in a house, but it's just baffling where this malevolent energy had come from. It really is. How did you guys work out that it was actually attached to your husband?
How did I work out? Sorry, what was that?
How did you guys work out that it was actually something that was attached to your husband? Was that just because of the malevolence of it all?
Because he was always the butt of it. Yeah. It was constantly. It was like a bully, really. I mean, scratch marks on his back, on all of his body. Really, it would attack him directly. It would throw things at him. Sometimes all day long, he'd have like little pieces of cereal, just hit him on the back of the head, just thrown at him constantly. Sometimes it would just feel his poking in his shoulder. Very hard, you know. What do you do? And you know, it did affect him deeply. But thankfully, we were very strong as a family. I think it was trying to wear him down. I mean, at one point, he said he was on the phone to his brother, and his brother said to him, "Why don't you ask it what it wants?" And Neil said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And next thing, he went into the kitchen, and there was a piece of paper sticking out of the microwave door, and he opened it, and it was his name in very scrawled writing, which said Neil. So he took it that meant that's what it wanted was him. So you know, we stayed very strong as a family, and I think that's what won through in the end. Really, we had a lot of love and support from our family and friends, and that was what won through. But I do feel sorry for anyone that would go through that doesn't have that support. I think it'd be very difficult and very dangerous as well. But thankfully, we've come out the other side. And writing our book was really a way for us. It was almost like therapy. It was a way for us to move forward. because we felt we couldn't move forward until we told people what happened to us. Although I knew personally in my occupation it would be very difficult for me, but I felt we just had to. You know, we thought about it very long and hard, and I thought it was such a huge event in our lives, we couldn't just move forward and forget about it. We had to tell people that this sort of thing happened.
Yeah. Well, I from reading the story, I noticed there was like a lot of what was going on seemed to be intimidation activity, as in there was things intentionally moved where you would see that they were moved. You know, I noticed the keys would get moved a lot from this story, and even people's clothing were moved. Like I think your husband's coat was moved at one point. And
and that was
placed
something
in the middle of the hallway.
That still
or something.
kind of happens. It's less threatening, so we don't really.
Hello, are you there, Caroline?
Sorry, carry on.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
I'm here.
no.
Sorry, we got cut off there.
No, I think I lost you there for a bit. I was just asking you about the coat in the hallway.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that still happens, is clothing. I know certainly when my husband gets ready the next morning, and it happened quite recently where he took his jeans up and they were buttoned up fully, and sometimes he'll find his clothes are zipped up to the top. Whereas none of us would have done that, but it's just like saying I'm still here, but it's less threatening, so we just ignore it and carry on, and I think that's the best thing to do, really. I think if you get scared, then that will encourage further occurrences, so that's how we deal with it. But yeah, even just small things, I think it was just letting you know it was still there, and it happened an awful lot. I mean, there's an awful lot that happened we haven't put in the book because it would just be too much for people to read about occurrences after occurrence, so we just put the most significant ones in.
Yeah, and how did your kids cope with all this? Like this must have been so frightening for them.
Yeah, I mean, the kids were our main priority, and we protected them as much as we could. Certainly our youngest never really understood what was going on because he was too young, thankfully. But we moved out, we were very fortunate, as I said, to have lots of support, so we moved out and stayed with Neil's parents who lived a few miles away, so they were safe. But I don't understand why, but nothing ever happened really to them. They would hear noises and things, but thankfully nothing was directed towards them, and we protected them throughout, and we certainly wouldn't push any of our thoughts on them or talk to them about it. We would just try and protect them as much as we could because we want them to have a normal upbringing. I don't want them going to school saying there's demons in the house or things like that. So we just said, if there's something happening, we're trying to sort it out. Try not to worry about it. I mean, even now they haven't read the book. I won't allow them to because I don't want them to be scared. But experience a certain amount. But on the whole, we were able to protect them quite a lot. When we moved back into the house, we pulled out the mattresses and they'd all sleep in our room with us on the floor. So I would be able to keep an eye on them and make sure they were safe, and thankfully we got through it okay. And they're absolutely fine as well, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I noticed one part of the book. I really looked at this part, and I've often heard these stories, and I've often thought you had this stuff go on and you didn't get out of the house at the time that was going on. I always think about that when I'm hearing people's stories, but there's quite a few occasions in this book where stuff happened and you guys think, nah, we're out of here, and you clear out of the house.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. You just had to judge it as it was. Like I say, sometimes it wouldn't be too bad, and then other times you could see it was getting to a level that just wasn't safe, and that's when we'd move out. It was very difficult, though, because Neil's parents only have a two-bedroom home, and of course there's 6 of us and 2 of them, so it was very cramped. So we'd gauge it each time, but thankfully we're perfectly fine now. We're quite happy and relaxed in the house, even though sometimes small things happen. It's nothing at the level it was before, and certainly the exorcism really did have a marked improvement in things. So we're a lot happier now as a family.
Well, that's really good. And I mean, it's considering like there was fires breaking out in your house and cars breaking out in fire, while you're driving them. I mean, it's a miracle, really, that no one came out of it hurt.
Yeah, I know, and rocks and things thrown and knives thrown. I often wonder if we have some protection here that's been looking out for us. I feel that there is. I've often felt a positive energy in the house, and certainly since the exorcism I felt that very strongly. So sometimes we'll get a smell of perfume, which is really nice smell, nothing like the bad smells we used to get here before. So yeah, I do wonder if there is some protection out there for us. I hope so.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there is. Well, this is something that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Like, how much rigmarole did you have to go through to actually get an exorcism performed?
Oh, it was incredibly difficult. I could never have foreseen how difficult it would be. I mean, we had lots of priests from lots of different denominations, because we would have asked anyone for help, even though we were brought up Catholics. We were just so desperate. We had lots of people come to the house, but they all said the Catholic Church was the way forward for an exorcism. But even then, that was very difficult. And it wasn't until, I think, things changed when my husband went to the priest, and he'd been so many times before, but then things started happening in the priest's quarters where there was loud footsteps and noises banging on the walls, and the priest just couldn't believe it. And then things happened very quickly after that, needless to say. He was very quick to arrange it. So we still had to go through a series of interviews. We still had to meet them. We still had to talk about, our religion, our upbringing. And I found that very difficult to understand that, unless you adhere by their religion and their rules, they won't help you. And that has really changed my view of the Catholic faith, to be honest. I don't put myself down to any particular faith anymore, because I don't think that's very fair. If people need help, then they should get help regardless of how they've lived.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, with what I do, I don't assess people on faith before I help them. I think we've lost Caroline there, which we have. Yeah, this is an absolute horrific story, this one. I don't think I've seen a story with quite this much activity, or even this much malevolent activity going on within a property, or even so more attempt to actually hurt someone, from starting fires within the house to some of the kids actually had plates thrown at them, and the plates didn't just slowly drop on the floor like you hear in some stories, but these plates actually flew past their heads. So it's pretty frightening. I'll just I'll play a little bit of music, I think, waiting for Caroline to come back. Oh, we've got her back. Hello, Caroline, are you back?
Oh, hello. Sorry about that. We dropped out.
Yes, no, that's okay. I was just explaining to everybody on a show that in reading this story, I don't think I've read a story with a wider variety of activity going on in a house. But what I was saying just before you cut off, was as a demonologist, I don't assess people on faith.
Yeah.
If they need help, I will jump in and I will help.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Unfortunately have come across a lot that have actually turned around and said to people, accept God or I can't help you. And I think that's absolutely disgusting. And and I think anyone who actually does that needs to get out of the profession. really,
Yeah, it
because
doesn't seem
you're
very
not doing it
Christian,
for
does
the
it?
right reasons. It's not a little way for you to go out and win souls for God. In fact, all you're doing is pushing people away from Christ.
And we didn't even know demonologists existed. We knew nothing of it. So, it's good to get the word out there and tell people that there is help out there as well, so they don't have to feel so alone, because you can, especially in the workplace and with people that you see on a day-to-day basis. You start telling them this is what's happening in your home. They don't always believe you, and it can feel very lonely indeed. So it's good to know there is help out there and there is other people going through the same thing.
Yeah. Well, Neil, you talk in the book about Neil's actual experience with the Ouija board, and it was actually quite a malevolent interaction. What did he actually experience?
So he told me he'd done hundreds of them when he was young with his friends. They'd go down to the shed and light a few candles and start asking questions. But on the last time they did it, the candles all blew out. They felt this breeze. They were plunged into darkness, so they were trying to get out, and they couldn't get out of the shed, and they panicked. And he said, well, that was the last time that really they'd felt something there, so that was the last time they did it. So, yes, I often wonder, if that was the source of it. But again, it's so hard to know, isn't it? But he has had a lot more experiences than me. I've never experienced anything until I met him, so that's part of it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I mean, he went through other paranormal experiences as well after the use of the Ouija board, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he'd seen a little girl where he was working. He heard someone call his name, and he turned around, and there was a little girl standing there. And like I say, we'd hear noises in the house we rented before. He'd hear banging noises coming from the boot of his car. That happened a couple of times when he was out with his friends, and they thought there was someone in the boot that somehow got into the boot of his car, and they checked it, and they opened the boot, and they jumped back, and of course there's nothing there. So I don't know if all those little things were leading up to what's happened today. He just seems to be more open to it than I am. But then I often wonder where we live. It may not be the house, but the land certainly is steeped in history. And there was a lot of witchcraft in the area years ago. The witch finder general, I think he was. There was a lot of that going on, a lot of torture of innocent women. And there's meant to be rumoured a witch's coven on this land. I don't know if that's true or not. But maybe it's just everything coming together to blend, to give the right amount of ingredients to create this strength to occur.
It could be. I mean, whatever you had there, or maybe still do, it was obviously very, very powerful. I mean, like you talk a lot about fires just randomly starting up. Like, how did it come about that these fires would just start?
Yeah, I mean, the oven was always turning on by itself, and the little gas hob, you'd have to click it to ignite it. You'd hear that clicking, and we disconnected it on the wall by turning off the switch on the wall, and then you turn your back and hear the switch turn on again. Sometimes it would put tea towels on the toasters, and the toasters would be plugged in. He'd put the iron away. The iron would be mysteriously plugged in again and, heating up. But then he'd seen fires just start on their own, like on the side in the kitchen. A little small flame would just erupt on its own. Or his clothing at one point, when he was with his friend, some clothing went on fire. And as he ran outside to try and throw it out, his own T-shirt lit, and his friend seen it. He said it just started off as a little small circle of fire. So needless to say, it was very worrying, and the fire out of the side of the house was very worrying as well, because that should not have started. There was bushes we had cut at the side of the house, but it was very damp and wet. It certainly wasn't conditions for a fire, and they just erupted. And as it was against the wall of the house, there was that worry there. And we tried to do it ourselves to see how that fire could have lit, but we couldn't light them. And it was very strange the way it happened, because he was on the phone to the investigator, Mike Hallowell, at the time, and he was telling Mike about the small fires. And Mike said, well, don't worry, poltergeists don't seem, they don't light big fires. They don't seem capable, so try not to worry. And that's when perhaps it was a challenge, I don't know, but that's when the big fire started.
Was that the big fire in the house or the big fire in the car?
It was at the side of the house outside. So thankfully it wasn't in the house, but it could have, if they weren't there, I'd like to think the whole house could have taken a light. So they managed to put it out. But the fire in the car happened actually after the exorcism. It was about a year after, but he'd still been having some problems. And that it was a diesel car. It shouldn't have taken a lift. I mean, I don't know for sure. Maybe it just happened. We don't know, but it just seemed like a coincidence because he had been having some problems. He'd heard some noises in the car and things like that, and it just seemed to lead up to that. But we can't say 100% for sure if he was responsible for it, but it did seem very odd the way it occurred.
Yeah, well, I think on burden of evidence of fires already starting up, I think it's a fairly I think it's a fairly safe assumption to make. When you've had those sort of experiences. If you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah, no, certainly.
Yeah. So what time of day would you say a lot of the activity happened? Was it all day or was it mostly?
Yeah, sometimes it was all day. I mean, I was able to escape. I would go to work and I'd have my phone near me, but I could at least get on with my life and forget about it for a while. Of course, with Neil, there wasn't much getting away from it at all. Even when he went to work, he worked as security, and he would hear this growling noise down the radio, and all the other people would hear it as well, and they'd change channels, and they'd hear the same noises, or like these fingernails, noises scratching the radio, and they couldn't understand. Of course, Neil knew what it was, but for him, it really did seem to want to wear him down, and it did bring him to a pretty low point, but thankfully, as I say, we had enough support and we were strong enough to get through it. But sometimes it would go and we'd think, oh, hopefully it's gone now, and then it'd come back stronger than before. But I know whenever I left, sometimes I would go to Ireland to visit my family, and that's when it would really get very bad indeed. I think because he didn't have me there, I think it really thought, it was really going to see just how much it could do and how far it could go.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I sort of asked that question is a lot of sort of demonic activity happens at around about 3 a.m. in the morning, so I was just trying to get to the bottom of where the peak activity was round about then.
I know certainly he would often wake up in the night feeling that someone was strangling him, and I would often feel there was someone watching us at the end. I just like there was someone standing over us, but I'd wake and I wouldn't see anything. But Neil very often woke up struggling to breathe. He'd kind of have his hands around his neck trying to loosen, feeling that someone was grasping him, feeling some pressure on his chest. And interestingly, when we got one of the investigators down, he's a psychic medium, Ian Lawman, who is sometimes he's on that program Most Haunted. He's quite famous, but he came down and he came into our bedroom and he said he picked up so much. He did say that he tries to strangle you in the night. He said you wake up feeling hands around your throat, and he turned to me and he said, yeah, and you feel a presence watching you, and that was exactly it. And he was able to tell me about the fires, and we hadn't spoken to him beforehand, and he did pick up an awful lot. He did pick up a malevolent presence which appeared as an old man, but he said it was very evil and wanted to harm us and just hated it, just wanted to cause us great harm. But again, we weren't sure why it wanted us out or what its end goal was, but it was very interesting when he came down and picked up those things. Hello? We go off again. No, I'm still on the line.
Hello, can you hear me, Caroline?
Oh, I can hear you. You disappeared for a while.
Yeah, sorry, I had some technical issues on my side here. I don't know what was happening.
You're a long way away.
I don't know what was going on then. I really don't. It's all of a sudden. See, I'm talking on a phone, and all of a sudden the phone just went and stopped.
Yeah.
So, but we're back now, so that's all right. What I was saying, I don't know even if you heard that, but you had your own sort of experiences at like 3 o'clock in the morning, didn't you, where you sort of woke up and you had extreme feelings of dread and you felt like you had to get up and check the house.
Yeah. Oh, that's if I slept in the first place. A lot of the time I found it very hard to sleep. But yeah, quite often I would wake up in the middle of the night. Sometimes I would get up and check, and sometimes I just wasn't brave enough. We'd hear the dogs barking downstairs when we had the dogs, and I would just, I just felt I couldn't get up. I just felt frozen almost, that we were ready to flee. You know, we'd have our bags packed downstairs at the door in case we did need to run out. But, it wasn't very nice at all, it really wasn't. But we felt we had to try and stay in the house just to get back to some sort of normality. But it did take time to be able to relax in the house again.
Yeah. When did anything actually occur while the actual house exorcism was being conducted?
Yeah, I mean, 2 priests and 2 lay people came, and it was pretty amazing, really. I mean, it went on for quite some time, and I could see they were probably quite exhausted as well, the amount of prayers and everything that had to be said. But certainly, when one of the ladies came in as a lay person, now, granted they had been to many, because this was what they did every week. They spoke to people. I mean, I don't think they held that many exorcisms because they had to be approved by the Vatican, so we were told.
Yeah.
But they had experience in it, so it wasn't anything new to them. But when she came in, one of the women, she just panicked. She said, "I can't stay here," and she literally ran out of the room and ran up the road. And the priest, who had all of his, the clothing on and everything, he ran after her, and I was thinking, oh my God, can you imagine what the neighbours must be thinking now? They're looking, they see all sorts of things happening with this house, and now they see a priest running down the street after this woman. But after some time, he persuaded her to come back in, but she just said she felt such an evil presence. But he persuaded her. She did come back in, but halfway through, then she collapsed. During the exorcism, she collapsed, and it took a while for her to recover from that. So she said she felt she was under attack, but thankfully then they were able to complete the exorcism, which is all we wanted, really. And there was lots of people here present for that, although they wouldn't allow everyone to be present again because of their own religions and beliefs, which I thought was a shame. But I know Mike had to wait outside on his colleague. But he said when he was outside that there were stones being thrown against our fence, and he could hear lots of noises. And he said, "Well, I don't think he's finished here yet. I don't think he got rid of him completely." But it did help, you know. It did. I suppose a lot of it is about permissions, about saying that we don't want you here, you're not allowed here, and asking for help and protection.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing, isn't it? I mean, protecting yourself if you have an awareness on how to protect yourself on these things, then that's half the battle, really. Well, the knocks and stuff, did they come in groups of 3, or were they just constant?
Yeah, quite often,
bang,
the bangs on the walls. I mean, it was strange. It wasn't like anything we'd experienced before, but you'd get 3 bangs, and it would be bang, 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 and it felt like the walls would shake. It was a strange kind of vibration, and the glasses on the table, you'd literally hear them move with the vibration. It was almost like an earthquake sometimes. It was so loud, it was like there was a wrecking ball hitting the side of the house. And at the end, you know, when it emitted these really loud growls, and there was several people in the house at the time, we just couldn't believe the strength of it to be able to do that. I still don't understand how they can communicate like that with us, but you think they do it all the time, but maybe it takes an awful lot of strength to build up to that, but certainly we did hear it on several occasions.
Yeah, well, you see, what I learned in my training, like with demonology and stuff, that anything in groups of 3 is very sort of very sort of important in the world of demonology, that 3 is often considered a mocking of the Trinity.
All right.
Yeah, so any noises and that sort of thing, that's why I asked that question, because any sort of noises or anything like that are in groups of 3, like even scratches, like...
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the scratches were in 3s a lot of the time as well, yeah.
Yeah, like, did the scratches have patterns to them as well, or were they just lines across the back, or what were they?
Yeah, sometimes there were lines and sometimes they were slightly rounded, but it was like 3 long fingernails digging into them. And he said it would feel like a burning sensation first, and sometimes he'd lift the shirt and I would literally just see it appear. He'd say, is there something that I can feel burning? And you just see these scratches appear. It's very strange.
Yeah, did anyone actually, in the time of all the activity going on, did anyone see any figures, like shadow figures, or was this all
yeah, a
stuff
lot.
and
Yeah, a lot.
unseen forces?
Yeah, I know there
was
quite
a lot.
obviously black shadows. And Neil's friend Chris, who recently did a little podcast myself on our site, talks about this black shadow, because when he was out with Neil one night, he said, "Oh, show yourself." And Neil says, "Oh God, don't say that. You know, we don't want to see it." And he went home, and afterwards he heard this strange, like whistling sound, humming noise, and he looked up, and there was what he described as like a black jelly baby shape, like a two-dimensional over him, and he felt that as a presence, and he just jumped up. But I know quite often Neil had seen black shapes. Lee, his friend as well, had seen black shapes in the house. So yeah, there was a lot of that.
Yeah, they're not the nicest things to run into.
No.
And yeah, I think I really think you had a lot more than just a poltergeist in there, just
yeah,
quietly.
I think so. Yeah.
People who have poltergeist haunts don't usually see shadow figures, and poltergeist haunts, although things getting thrown around can be deemed as a physical attack, in poltergeist cases there's not always direct attacks on people like you guys suffered, and that's a very interesting
stones
part
coming down from the air outside when Neil was trying to escape the house, and he was trying to run out, and he's had these showers of stones, which my children witnessed as well. They thought it was hailstones at the time, even though it certainly wasn't the time of year for them. And they would hit the roof of the car as he's getting into the car, and then sometimes as well it would come from inside the car, where he would have stones thrown at him. So that was pretty terrifying, because there was just no getting away from it.
Wow, that'd be terrible. Especially when you're trying to drive a car and you're trying to get away from whatever's there, and then you realise what you're trying to get away from is actually in the car with you.
Yeah, and the investigator, Mike Hallowell, quite often he would record the telephone calls, and there was many a time he was on the phone to Neil, and he's got some recordings of, and you can hear the fear in his voice. It is horrible. It just gives you a chill down your spine to listen back. I'm sure he will release them at some point so people can listen and just see what we went through, but I wouldn't wish it on anyone, that's for sure.
No. So he's not getting attacked anymore, I hope?
No, just little things happen every now and again, but no attacks, thankfully. But I think it is a lot to do with your own strength and state of mind, that if you stay strong, that you can, battle against it, really. And it's only when people are weak, I suppose, or alone, that they'd have difficulties. Occasionally he might get a scratch or be scratched, but he just carries on. He just ignores it, and I think that's the best way of dealing with it. But certainly nothing like before, when he was actually being beaten, when he was really in fear of his life. Nothing like that, thankfully. But occasionally something small might happen to just let us know it's still there. But if it doesn't get any worse than that, then we can live with it. As long as it doesn't get any worse. So far, so good.
Well, the entity actually, whatever was there, actually tried to write things too, didn't it, to you?
Yeah, we did get a thing with a D, or it looked like a DOS, which we still don't understand the significance of that. Certainly, if anyone had any light to shed on it, we'd be most grateful to know what it meant. But again, when it wrote his name as well, Neil, on a piece of paper, it's pretty amazing to think anything would have the strength or intelligence to be able to do that, but it did. So, yeah, it's amazing.
It wrote his name in conjunction with the letter D, did it?
No, when he was on the phone to his brother before, his brother said to him, ask it what it wants. And Neil said, I'm not asking it that. And then he'd come to the microwave and found a piece of paper folded up, and when he opened it, it had his name on it, Neil, Neil, in scrawled writing. I've got the picture of that actually on my site, the link to it. But it's, and then separately on another occasion, he got this, it's like a D, it looked like an O and an 8, but I don't know what it was really. But our investigator, Mike Halliwell, was amazed when he seen the picture because he'd actually investigated something previously in a separate investigation which had the same type of markings. So I've looked up different things on the internet, but I couldn't find any significance on what it meant, but it must mean something, I'd imagine. But sometimes we would go outside as well where the fire was, and we would see these diamond shapes made out of soot, and we would see these crosses where twigs would be put in the shape of a cross, and we'd kick them away and think, oh, that's nothing. But then you go back the next day and that would be there again. So I don't know what, if they were symbolic or what it meant, but you'd have different
Just
symbols.
in front of the fireplace?
Sorry?
Were they in front of the fireplace, or were they actually
written
where
the fire was outside.
Right, okay.
Outside.
Wow.
So, but again, we didn't know what they meant, and we just tried to ignore them, so carry on and not let it worry us too much.
Yeah. So did the crosses look like they were inverted crosses, or were they just look like normal crosses?
I don't know. I know people have said some things about crosses upside down and things like that, but I don't honestly know. It was just one over the other, one twig over the other. But I know when the investigator, Ian Lawman, came down, he did pick that up. He said there was a man, and he said he had he was holding something, and the cross, it was upside down. So I don't know if that had any connection with it.
Right. This is an absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I know that the priest said to us that there was, in that area, there was like black magic and things practiced. It's not the best of areas, certainly, with the history for witchcraft and things like that. But then there was a lot of innocent women that were accused of witchcraft as well, So I don't know. I really don't know. Couldn't answer.
Well, I mean, if you're in an area that's had a lot, not so much of witchcraft being done, but even like atrocities occurring where people are accused of witchcraft. And I mean, sadly, I'm a Christian myself, but I'm horrified that actually people were put to death just under suspicion of being a witch. I mean, that sort of thing can leave a pretty incredible imprint on the land, just on a residual level.
Yeah, and a lot of separate investigators picked up what they called energy ley lines running through our home. Mediums, not investigators, mediums came, because we had lots of different mediums, and they all kind of picked it up in the same area. They said, oh yeah, there's definitely strong energy ley lines running through this land. But, things happened outside of the home as well. Things happened when he would go out with his friends, and even things happened when he went on holidays. He sat at his table and his fork was bent in half. And he happened to be talking about it to his friends, and his friend picked up his fork, and his fork was bent in half as well. And he said, oh my God, what's just happened to my fork? And Neil says, well, he's just letting you know he's about. So, he was strong enough to follow him, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's by the sounds of it, it's obviously not a residual haunt. It seems to be a very intellectual.
Maybe it just has a portal there or something. Neil did capture a photo on the stairs. When he took a picture of the prints going up the stairs, he did capture a photo, which is very interesting, it's hard to explain, but it looked like a vortex almost, a swirling going down, and there's a little like a light shape beside it, and our investigator was very interested in that, and he tested it because he has software, and he said, no, there's certainly nothing wrong with your camera. You've pictured something significant here, so I don't know if it's what people would call, maybe it was a portal that it could come and go through where we lived, but it could still function without being in the house.
Yeah. Can you relate to everybody? This part just blew me away. The Coke can incident.
Yeah, I know. When I was writing the book, I said to my husband, I said, "You sure we should put this in, because this is just going to be too much for people to believe. People will already be struggling to believe at this point. Maybe it would be easier if we just left it out and just didn't put it in the book." And he said, "No, look, it happened. We've told the truth. We've said everything that's happened so far. We have to tell people this because this is significant." So I did. I was on the phone to him at the time. I was actually in Ireland, and things were getting pretty bad for him, as it often would when I was away. And and the doors were slamming and everything was going crazy in the house, and he was about to leave, and his friend was there with him as well, and he looked up, and it was just this Coke can. He's seen it as like a Coca-Cola can, and he's seen it come through the ceiling, and I heard it hit the floor, and I said to him, "What was that?" And he was just so stunned. He said, "I've just seen it come through the ceiling. It just come." So matter was passing through physical matter. I mean, we'd experienced it before in that things would move from one room to the other, or things that, like, he'd have makeup from my bedroom be thrown at him outside when the windows were closed. So we knew something like that was happening, but we didn't really understand how. But that was quite significant, really. And I was speaking. We spoke with Guy Lyon Playfair, who was the investigator in a very famous case over here, the Enfield poltergeist. And he was very interested to hear of that, because he'd said, he'd heard about physical matter, but he was very interested in hearing Neil's experiences of that.
Yeah, when I read that experience, I went, wow, that is something that I would really love to see. But at the same time, it would probably absolutely scare the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because it would take...
It was that fascination, and this is why I think Neil found it hard to let go at the end, because it was just so fascinating, and people don't understand that unless you're in that world. You're terrified, but you're fascinated at the same time. But like I said, people find it hard to understand how you could be. Can't you just walk away? But then you're always trying to find answers, aren't you?
Yeah, well that's it. Like, it's like the time when you're on an investigation or something, and something happens, and you run away, but then the inquisitiveness gets the better of you. You turn around and go back into where it just happened to try and process through what had occurred.
Yeah.
And people say, why didn't you keep running? I said, I just had to go back and try and sort out what had just happened.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing there must have been a lot of that in your case here.
Yeah, definitely. There was.
A lot of processing having to occur. But anyway, I really want to thank you for coming on and talking to me tonight. I really,
thank you.
I really appreciate it. And I'm glad things have settled down for you mostly, and I'm glad that you guys have learnt ways to protect yourselves. And I'm guessing that's what's helped you guys more now, because there's still little things occurring, obviously. So although they could be residual things, I think the fact that it hasn't gotten too badly malevolent as you guys have learned how to protect yourselves. Do you want to tell everybody where they can get a hold of your book?
Yes, thank you. They can get it on Amazon if they just search for Paranormal Intruder. We're absolutely delighted with how well it's doing worldwide, so it's really brilliant to get the message out there and let everyone know. So they can visit my site, which is www.caroline-writes.com, and there's lots more information on there, such as witness interviews, pictures, evidence, and details of the book there as well. Or, like I say, they can just go on Amazon, and it's available on paperback and download for just a couple of dollars, I think, so it's not too much. So, and we love to hear from people, so we welcome all correspondence as well. But certainly shows such as yours are absolutely brilliant, and we're very grateful for people like you to let us come on and spread the word.
No, well, I mean, that's what we set out to do. And I mean, everybody loves to hear these sorts of stories. It sounds kind of morbid, really, when you've gone through such a horrific experience. But I mean, it's a good thing that you put this book in writing, and I mean, I guess that I guess you've done that to educate people as well.
Yeah, definitely. We just don't want anyone to have to go through what we did and feel just so alone. So to know, I've had a lot of messages from people, which has been absolutely brilliant, messages of support, but also messages from people that have had experiences that are just grateful that the word is getting out there. So it's all good. I think, there's a lot of good things to come in the future with regards to paranormal. I think we're just on the edge of it now, but in the future people will be a lot more open to it, thanks to shows such as yours. So hopefully things will get a lot better.
Yeah, that's excellent. And, keep in contact with us, and we'll keep in contact with you. And everybody, please look up this book. It's an amazing read. Thank you very much, Caroline, and I will talk to you very soon.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
When we talk.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop the pre-record there. Because that was going to be the second half of the show, that pre-record, but due to Nicole not being able to make it tonight, I played that one now. Now, I have teed up somebody else to come on. I'm just waiting for him to call in now. Hopefully he calls in soon. It's demonologist Jerry Williams. We'll be calling in a minute, hopefully. Now would be good, but doesn't matter. Jerry's going to ring in and talk to us about conspiracy theories. We are going to have Jerry on as well in some future weeks to talk about demonology, certain demons and that sort of thing. But I thought instead of mixing that in with the with that later show, I thought we might try and get Jerry on here to just get into the conspiracy thing today. So I think this is him now. Jerry, are you there? Hello, Jerry. Can you hear me? That's obviously not working for us right now. So what I might actually do is, we actually had a show the other week where we actually had some EVPs come up on the show, and I actually might play those while I'm trying to work out what's going on with Jerry. They're not all that long, but there's almost sound like two people arguing on this EVP. Like Colonel and Truth. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm hearing a lot of interference. Yeah, well, I don't know where that's coming from. That was very unnerving, that one, actually, for myself, because I'm thinking, what the hell is going on this show? I don't think we've still got Jerry. I'll try and see what's going on here. What I might actually do, it's just been one of those days today, people. So what I might do is I might actually get on here and play this music, and then now I've got another one calling in. Hello, is that you, Jerry?
You're a faggot.
All right, well, that was a friendly caller. Thank you for calling in. I'm going to play some music because, I love that stuff. right, well, I'm just going to stop that there because I think we've got Jerry online now. Jerry, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. How about yourself there, Brett?
Well, it's actually been the most bizarre day of my life, actually. Just, it's one of those days where just nothing seems to go right. And some lovely person decided to ring in before and call me a faggot. But anyway, you get that on the big jobs. But anyway, Jerry, thank you so much for filling in at such short notice. I really appreciate it.
No problem. No problem at all, brother. I'm glad to be here. So, I guess you and I were talking. We're like, well, we can cover the conspiracy stuff here.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. There's a lot of conspiracy stuff going on right now.
How did you get started in it, Jerry?
You know what? I got into it years ago when I started looking at some films that people were putting out, and one of the things I was looking at was a movie that was called Zeitgeist, and it's on YouTube. If you go to zeitgeist.com, people can really look at this thing. But it's a film that talks about conspiracy of. It starts out in conspiracy of religion, and then it starts out in conspiracy of 9/11, and then it talks about the monetary system of the Federal Reserve banking system and how that's corrupt, because over in America, it's just like everywhere else. I guess everywhere else they would call it the central bank. Here in America, the central bank. So in America, we have what's known as the Federal Reserve banking system. Well, apparently, the Federal Reserve banking system was put together by businessmen, not lawmakers. So the people like the Rockefellers, you have J.P. Morgan. As a matter of fact, they met on a J.P. Morgan estate, and what they did is they put together they introduced the Federal Reserve Bank system, and the crazy part is that this has nothing to do with the government at all. So it's kind of like saying, like Federal Express, and that's about as much as the Federal Reserve banking system is just like Federal Express. So, in a nutshell, it's saying that it's corrupt, that it is made by businessmen, not by lawmakers. So there's no control to it, and that's why they have the control to jack up the inflation rates and interest rates and do all that. So they do that for that purpose, to take control. But anyway, that's what got me started in it. So I started looking at some stuff like John F. Kennedy. I mean, everybody knows John F. Kennedy. So, that was probably the first part of anybody's conspiracy world was John F. Kennedy. They're like, it wasn't Oswald. It was three, the different shots. The grassy knoll, and I believe that.
It is hard with that one, though, because there's so many theories being thrown around with JFK. It's hard to sort out what's factual and what's not.
Well, absolutely, because there's so much out there where they bounced around. But when we look at what's funny is when you look at some of the stuff that they said, for example, like the JFK story. That Warren Commission put out that he was shot by a magic bullet theory, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but the magic bullet theory is where one bullet goes through, and it basically, here's what they said, it went through Conley, he was sitting in front of John F. Kennedy, it went through his wrist, bounced around, and it did a big old U-turn, come back through his upper shoulder, went through Kennedy's neck, and then came back down and went through Conley's leg. So, I mean,
wow.
So we're talking about a bullet that did a turbo turnaround twice, and there's no way for that to happen. I mean, it's humanly impossible.
Well, I know bullets can bounce around in bodies, but the thing is, by the time it's bounced around in the body and come out the other side, it's lost all velocity.
Right.
And it's most certainly not. And it's most certainly not going to kill anyone.
Well, back in the 60s, of course, and a lot of people believe that stuff. So they were like, oh, okay, that did happen then, So, yeah, that did happen. But in today's world, we kind of see that as something's wrong with that picture, But there's a lot of stuff that happens. I mean, when I cover the conspiracy stuff on a weekly basis, I mean, it's unbelievable how many stories are out there, and you got to fish through them because some things out there are just way out there in left field somewhere. It's somebody's opinion or somebody's storyline. But what I look for is the news itself. I mean, I look for realistic news articles that are hidden from the public. So, for example, I tell you what, some websites to check out, your listeners can check out too, is something that's called beforeitwasnews.com, or beforeitsnews.com, excuse me. And you can also check out blacklistnews.com. And, those two websites are really good for getting some information. It makes me mad because some stuff out there that people just not paying attention to, and I think that, in the conspiracy world, some of the stuff's nuts, but some of it is kind of interesting, and
yeah, like, I mean, I've had conversations with you previously about 9/11 because I've had an issue with a lot of the theories that have come out about 9/11 and gone, well, I don't know about that one. But what's your view on 9/11?
Yeah, and I think after studying 9/11, and there's a lot of unanswered questions there, and I guess to me, it seems like there's a lot of cover-up. There's a lot of stuff that just, that's what I believe that's what our government does. They cover up stuff because they know they don't want to be told. They don't want the information to get out of the bag. So a couple of things that kind of strike me as kind of curious is how the buildings were hit, for one, and, number two, when we look at the buildings and see that they were hit, you have countless acts of people talking about how they, that were inside the World Trade Centers, being in the Tower 1 and 2. These people are talking about hearing explosions above their head because they were down in the basement. And they're saying that they hear these explosions, and they could hear them going off. And people were like, well, no, that's a plane hitting the building. No, he said that was after the plane hit. You could hear the explosions going off. Well, they didn't, of course, use their testimonies. They pretty much said that what they heard was the plane hitting the building. That's kind of like, it's kind of like saying that, here's my testimony, but I'm going to change it around, But anyway, that's a little bit of a I mean, the way the buildings went down, the way people come up with their information, I mean, people were talking about it. And then you have the other one, which was called World Trade Center 7, which was a building that the people didn't even talk about. And it's right behind World Trade Towers 1 and 2. And when they got struck, I mean, here's the thing. It didn't even get struck by a plane, but it was on fire. And all of a sudden it caught fire, and the middle of the middle of the beams caved in, and the damn thing fell down. So, I mean, it collapsed. So it was almost like it imploded itself.
Well, I mean, the main towers seemed when they fell, they seemed to fall from the bottom.
Right, exactly. It's weird. I mean, when you think, and it makes you wonder because you think, okay, well, you got these buildings that literally just caved in. I mean, they fell. How the heck do you have a building just fall? I mean, if you look at the 9/11, if you ever look at the video clips and how those buildings came down, they didn't come down like little bit after little bit. It was like something gave out through each part of the building, and it was like it was a controlled demolition.
Yes. Yeah, it did kind of look like that, didn't it?
Yeah. And what's funny is when they talk about, here's the part that really kills me. The only way they identified that those were terrorists on a plane was they found one of the passports of the hijackers that it basically went through all the fireballs, went down through the fireball, landed on the ground, and it was in perfect good shape. Everything else on that plane basically disintegrated except for that passport.
That's a pretty strong passport.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they have to be made out of... I mean, it's funny, man, because people look at that, and of course, when you look at the other planes, for example, the one that hit the Pentagon, it was a good example of that one, too. that damn thing, it disintegrated in a billion pieces. And here it is, it disintegrates, but they could find human remains, and they could take the fingerprints, and they could get their fingerprints off their fingers, basically. So they could still get identification from the fingerprints, but yet the core columns, or not core columns, but the engines are made out of titanium steel. So those are made to resist heat. Well, I mean, that's like looking at the space shuttles. That's how much it can resist heat. Now, everybody knows that the space shuttle can come through the Earth's atmosphere or through the heat shield. I mean, it can go right on through there. Well, it's the exact same thing. So the thing we have here is that, when they went out there was nothing there. There was bits and pieces that like they were just laying there, like a tire was laying there or something like that, but everything else disintegrated. So it's almost like they wanted to make sure all the evidence was taken away. And then they said that there was FBI agents in suits that were putting, replacing the whole area where it was burnt by the Pentagon. They were replacing it with like sand and stuff. So I don't know, but I mean, it might sound crazy, but people out there need to really think about that stuff because, I'm not saying that it could be a conspiracy. I mean, obviously it is conspiracy to some folks, and even
there's
people,
a lot of unanswered questions, isn't there? So that kind of makes it a conspiracy theory, doesn't it? The fact that there's a lot of unanswered questions in relation to it. I mean, some people even say that what hit the Pentagon wasn't even an airplane.
Right, exactly.
Do you agree with that aspect? Like some people say it was a missile.
Right. I mean, I heard that theory that it was a missile that fired off. That the plane was not really a 747 jetliner or a airliner. It was more of a military jet that fired a missile off. And they say if you look at the film, you can see how the missile comes off and hits the buildings. Well, I don't know. I mean, I believe that could be very well a possibility. What's funny is, like the Pentagon, for example, the FBI and all them, they confiscated all the footage of the camera that is literally on the Pentagon. It has the perfect view of what happened. I mean, it would basically pick up that plane hitting the building. But they confiscated all the evidence, and they will not let anybody see it. So that is, to me, very very shady work right there. So
that is, especially if there's unanswered questions about it, and they're denying it. Why wouldn't they release it?
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly. And you know what? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on currently as we speak too. I mean, in today's conspiracy world, we have so much going on that's just nuts. Everybody knows the big thing coming up here in the United States is the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of conspiracies
around that.
Oh, absolutely. They fly all over the place. They have, there's people out there that believe that, that they're going to have, that there's a possibility that, and I'm not saying that I believe this, I'm just saying that's what the conspiracy world is talking about, that there's maybe a possibility of gas being leaked out into the stadium, from like a terrorist type attack, or even along the lines of, if everybody remembers the movie, the last Batman movie, where what was that called? The Batman, Dawn of Bane, the last one that just came out. But that one, I can't remember the Batman movie.
I can't remember it either, to be honest.
Dude, it's the one that that guy went out there and shot those people and shot up the Batman, the theater. I can't remember but anyway. That Batman movie, in the movie itself, there's a scene where, they have these explosives underneath the Coliseum or the football stadium, and of course they put everybody in that Coliseum, and then the damn they set it off, and of course you see the field just basically exploding, and all these people are running and dying and everything else. Well, that's what they believe. The other part of the conspiracy is because they believe that movies follow real life, and that they put these hidden subliminal messages out there, and that is probably what could happen as well. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to watch the Super Bowl to find out what Here's what some people are saying. They're saying that because it's not being held in their cities, it was held over in New Jersey, which is a very odd, it's something very odd for them because, normally they would hold it somewhere like in Florida or somewhere like that where it's warm, but for some reason they decided to choose New Jersey of all places. So, and then of course, some people come out with like this numerology stuff, which I don't follow, by the way. But in numerology, apparently all this stuff that equals up with the words of the stadium and of course the teams and everything else equals up to a very bad sign, which means that's where it's going to happen now. Like it's it favors for something of an attack or something. I don't know. Like I said, I don't do numerology. So
stuff seems to come out with all the big things, doesn't it? That sort of stuff came out with 9/11 too.
Exactly. Yeah, they came up with the 9/11 with that numerology. I have this guy that comes on my show. He's like a co-host, but he does. Man, he comes up with that he can come up with the numerology stuff pretty good. But I always let him talk about it because he knows more about numerology than I do. But I don't. He gets so in depth with it. I don't even know what the hell just happened because I don't even know. If somebody starts talking numerology to me, I mean, I just go into a total blank. And I look at them and say, I don't even know what the heck you're saying, but it sounds good, I guess.
Yeah, well, they somehow seem to have an ability to make it all work out in the end, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. Well, here's something else that people don't know about. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention. Our biggest thing that we're concerned about here in America, as far as on the conspiracy end, is martial law, because we believe that the President of the United States that we currently have, Obama, is getting ready to declare a serious, a finalized martial law. What we do believe is that martial law is already in effect. If you look at 9/11, when the Patriot Act was introduced, that started the martial law process. And then if you look at, you remember the Boston Marathon bombings when they had I don't know if you remember that. Okay. So in the Boston Marathon bombings, when they blew, of course these guys went out there. When they started to go out through people's homes out there, they had the FBI and military. They were going through people's homes, and people would say, I don't want you going through my home. They said that we have warrants basically. They told everybody, they said, we have an executive order here to go through everybody's homes. So the thing is, that's a little shady because that's kind of what martial law does. So the next thing that we're concerned about is that Obama just signed an executive order just recently here in America, and I think it's Executive Order 362, which states that they can have control of our food supply. So what that means is that if they feel like there's a threat, they can take any of these food supply from any farms, anywhere. If it's exported or imported, they can take the food and put it into a warehouse somewhere, and they can hold it for the simple fact of a threat to the food system. And so he just signed that in order, the executive order, just I think it was like 5 months ago. Right. And then you have this one, Brett. This is the one that really kills me. Then you have where Obama signed an order a while back. This was about last year or a couple of years ago, when he signed into the NDAA, which was the National Defense Act. He signed in that this is true, that if any person out here in America, if they feel that they are a threat or a terrorist, they can pull them over, they can take them out of their cars, they can detain them indefinitely, they can go into people's homes and detain them indefinitely, under the mere fact that they think that they might be a terrorist. And that was signed into order. Yep. Yes, it was. That's a true executive order that was signed into effect. So it's in the National Defense Act.
Is that without any burden of proof?
Oh yeah, I mean they got the article on there. If you look up, as a matter of fact, everybody can look this stuff up. It's really, if you go out there and you look up the NDA, of course the act here, you can find out that the National Defense Act. You can look up the executive order, which I used to know that right offhand, right off the top of my head, which the number was, but this was a few months ago. Well, it was a couple of years ago. And when that came out, I think it was in 2013 is when it came out, last year as a matter of fact. But they were talking about that, going through, and of course, going through and be able that if somebody is, deemed a terrorist, or they think they're a terrorist, they can basically, hold them, pull them out of their house or wherever they're at, and detain them indefinitely. So it's kind of crazy.
We actually have a caller here. I want to see if they've got a question or something. Caller with area 720. Are you there? Okay. No, they're not there. That's all right. I don't know what that's about, but anyway. They might have called in. Yeah, well, it's one of those silent callers. Is all that sort of stuff part of the New World Order kind of conspiracy?
Well, yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, I guess what people believe is that this will turn into what's known as the New World Order, of course, and the New World Order is having a one world government. As a matter of fact, how, and this is probably a good example. You guys, I don't know if you guys, your currency you use out there now, Australia. What do you guys use out there? Is it like you're not using the euros or anything like that, are you?
No.
All right, so they have you're lucky for that, because what happens is they have the euros, right? The European currency, and then you have what's known as the you go through and you look at it. They have the African Union, which they have a certain currency, and if you break it down, apparently what happens is they want to combine all this stuff. They want to combine all the governments to one new world order. So here's the part that's crazy. When George W. Bush was in office, he signed into effect something that was called the he signed into effect when he was in office. He said, okay, we're going to sign this into effect that we're going to combine Canada, Mexico, and United States together. And then they put a road that was called the superhighway, which basically goes from Mexico to Canada, without the truck drivers, whomever, being stopped, basically. So they can go from border to through one country to the next without being stopped on the border. They have cameras on the highway and everything else. But the currency, they wanted to make what was known as the Amero dollar, which was the one currency for America, Canada, and the United States. So it would be called the Amero. And, nobody ever covered this. What was funny, because everybody goes, we can't cover that because we don't want to look like we're getting involved in this. And that's where I think that I agree with people that the mainstream media is a part of, they control that. So when we say these are what we call the men and women behind the curtain that control our governments and control them on a base that they do what they want. So they basically have control of the whole system. The elite, you might have heard them called the elite. So when you look at this, of course, me personally, nobody ever covered with the United States the whole combination of what was going to happen. And of course, with that, the only person that covered it was Lou Dobbs, which was on I think it was CNN or something like that. Well, he covered it. He brought it out. He brought it out about George Bush, and there was people that came out was really kicked off about it. And next thing you know, everybody started getting mad. So they fired this guy. I mean, he was terminated from his position for reporting this. And of course, they did not want him to report it because they wanted it to be hush hush. They don't want people to know what they're doing. So everything is on a need-to-know basis, basically. And it's truly interesting. It really is, because the facts remain that this stuff is out there in front of your eyes. And I can sit there, I mean, the stuff that people are making up, I mean, this stuff is all documented. So it's not something that somebody goes, oh, well, that's just, hypothetically what's going on, and, it's an opinion. It's not even that. It's more of a real true news story that has been brought out, something like that. So all of this information that I only use, is going to be news stories. I mean, if somebody says that they believe that, something or another, I mean, I wouldn't believe that unless I see it for a true fact in writing that it was, a news story, that something links us to the evidence. So,
right, the good old reptilian conspiracy.
Right, and the reptilian conspiracy, which I gotta be honest, I don't ever really, I mean, people do follow the reptilian conspiracy, a lot of people do, but I have never, because that's, and that's very interesting too, because a lot of people believe that, the reptilian conspiracy is real, and I mean, I've never, I mean, I've heard of it and stuff, but I've never ever, followed it 100% right away. So, I mean, the conspiracy of it is truly amazing that, these reptilians out here. I mean, I've seen people put videos out of these, like, presidents and everybody else where they had this, like George Bush, I think it was Senior or somebody, like when he was blinking, stuff, you could see like a third eye or a third lens going over his eye and stuff. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. It really was.
I mean, some of the videos out there of the reptilians, it's not hard to see that it's been faked.
Absolutely.
So
that's what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of this stuff is fake.
When there's fake videos like that out there.
Yeah. And then, some of the stuff, did you, like here, I don't know if you heard about this. Here you go, listen to this. Like, this is like news, and this is true news, but it's stuff that hits the conspiracy world for the simple fact that people don't pay attention to this kind of stuff. So it's almost like they call it blacklisted. But like Walmart, I don't know if you heard about Walmart, or Walmart stores has already warned on the Friday, today, that they're going to do these cuts to the nation's food stamps program. So what they're going to do is they're going to not allow the food stamp program to be, used at their stores. So they're cutting the food stamps went into effect November 1st, they said, but the food stamps has been increased during the height of the recession. But these stamp suppliers said that they're going to start keeping an eye on that.
So, in what way?
Well, here's what it is. Here's what they said. More cuts to the funding of what could be the way of the bipartisan deal. I'm going to read a little bit of this article, but it says, a new farm bill reached earlier this week could trim $90 a month in benefits for 850,000 food stamp recipients. So it says saving the government nearly $1 billion a year. So what they did is they did a cut back on the food stamps, but now what they're going to do is introduce a new program to help shave off the food, to help out the government, basically. So now it's going to save them $1 billion a year, they say. This is what Walmart says.
Okay.
So we'll find out. We'll find out how they decide to cut the food stamp program and reintroduce something new. We'll find out how that works.
A lot of conspiracies we do kind of hear about here in Australia is a lot about HARP and FEMA.
Yes, yeah.
Are they sort of current conspiracies going on too?
Yeah, I mean that's big over here. Even in America, the conspiracy world does thrive around HARP, which is, for those who don't know, HARP is a weather-controlled device that, believe it or not, this program or this machine was developed and designed to help help countries to be able to survive. So what it was for a long time ago, the gentleman who built it, put it into a play to where he wanted to, let's say that like Ethiopia, good example. Let's say Ethiopia does not have any rain in their area. Well, this was a device that could help control like the rain or push rain that way to where they could have water and they would be able to survive. So when the government found out that they liked this program and they thought that, well, this is pretty cool, they wanted to use it as a weapon instead of, something that would be used for good, per se.
Okay.
So they put it out there. Now over in the United States, it's up by Alaska, and it is something that is controlled by frequencies. And truthfully, when you see about the HARP program, they say that a lot of these tsunamis and Hurricane Katrina and stuff like that was caused by this HARP weatherization program. And FEMA is the other one you were talking about too. FEMA camps is very big over here, where they have these camps that are all over the United States, and FEMA is definitely one of those. These FEMA camps are where they're going to try to put people into if of course, the world, people start to flip out, I guess. But here's the thing, and this we have to look at in a nutshell. When will the people rise up against the government, right? Because that's what we're going to see happen. I mean, truthfully, that's what we're going to see happen. And what's going to be is that if they take away everybody's money, they take away everybody's, especially here in America, they take away everybody's money, they take away everything that the person can live on, let's say, then that person, the people are going to start to rebel back against the government. Right now, our government has decided to take a long vacation here and cut or suspend any kind of money towards any of our programs. So right now, as we speak, like our taxes, they were not taking any tax returns until exactly the 31st, which was yesterday or today of January.
Okay.
So they weren't taking any taxes until then because they didn't have the funds. In my state, our unemployment is out right now because there's no funding for unemployment. They used up all the money. So everybody who's on unemployment, they lost it. So what I'm saying is when you start to take away from the people and you start to take away their money, you push them down to where they can't get back up, per se, then you got a problem. That's when the people are going to start saying enough's enough. They're going to rebel back, and that's where people will start going crazy. And that's what I think the government wants, is for people to fight back. Because when you do that, then it becomes a civil war, basically. And that becomes a situation where they can also put into effect the full effect of martial law.
Yes. Like these FEMA camps, like I've seen people put pictures up, but it's hard to tell that they're actually a camp. Are these actually real things that are actually documented under there, these FEMA camps?
Yeah, I mean, have you seen some of the pictures up there? They do have a few of the ones I've seen is throughout the United States they have these camps put up there. But I mean, they have even some. They have these cylinders or containers out there that I guess that's where they put people when they die or something. I don't know if you've seen that, but they had these big containers that were on these railroads and stuff like that.
I've seen the massive containers.
Oh, you have? Okay.
That's what I've mostly seen pictures of, yeah.
Well, it's like this. It's like the FEMA is starting to work a lot very close with like the NSA, the National Security. And the NSA is really getting goofy here with this because we got to look at what they're doing. They're actually learning how to deal with any kind of civil actions. The NSA, TSA, we always hear about TSA here, right? The airports and that. Well, TSA now is becoming a part of the Homeland Security program to where they can not only, work at airports and deal with the security at airports, but they're going to be working with security to out here in the as far as any transportation unit like trains, buses, you name it, they're going to be out here, even in the roads where there's transportation. So they've developed a program to basically be used for a weapon against the people, honestly, because I don't know if you've seen this, but Homeland Security, they have their own Humvees, and they have their own military recreational vehicles. They're equipped with, they're equipped with machine guns on them. They have a ramming device on the front of it, and it says Homeland Security on the side, black. And what's funny is that these things they're not fake, they're real, because even in Kentucky, which is one state over from us, they have an area where they actually have I think it's like around 30 to 40 of these type of recreational vehicles where they're going to use these things for some reason. I mean, why the hell would they have them? You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Well, if they're not parked at airports, then I guess you do have to wonder what they're used for, don't you?
Absolutely, because that's when it becomes a serious matter, because if they're going to expand this out, start using it, and here's something people need to pay attention to also. I mean, like in the United States, they try to take away our guns. Okay, they try to take away people's guns by saying, okay, well, we have the Constitution of the United States. Let's take away that Second Amendment. Let's take away the right to be able to bear arms. So they decided that would cause more of a problem, so they didn't do that. You know what they did? They decided to buy up ammunition. So Homeland Security, TSA, and the NSA bought over $1.3 billion worth of ammunition.
Wow.
Now, why would they need that much ammunition?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure the people making this ammunition are rubbing their hands together, going, "Oh, let's make more."
Right. Let's make some more and get some more out there, you know. And the people out there don't realize that the big scale, you got to look at the numbers. If they have all the ammunition, or they buy up ammunition, then that means that the people won't have as much ammunition. So now, see, our government put a restriction on, these people who make ammunition. Now they can only make so much of it now. Yeah. So they're trying to keep us from. So basically, it's kind of like saying we're going to make sure that if they take everything away from us, like our money and everything else, if they can take away everything, then if people try to fight back, then they have no way to fight back. Right. Yeah. And if the government has the bullets, they have the upper hand.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, your government over there's got enough weapons without having to buy bullets.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, there's it's the whole thing's a joke. I mean, when you think me personally, I read everything and I take a look at it, and do I believe a lot of this stuff? A lot of it makes sense. I think that a lot of this is pretty, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. I mean, all you got to do is look at what's going on. I mean, when people come out and they start to talk about stuff like that, I mean, I've seen people become missing, where people have the men in black, or whoever you want to call them, the Secret Service.
Good old men in black. That's a theory and a half, that one. We'll get onto that one.
Yeah, you know about the men in black. If anybody deals with UFOs, you'll see the men in black.
Well, some people say they're aliens.
Say that the men in black are aliens?
Yeah, I've actually heard the theory that the men in black are actually aliens.
Really? I don't think I've ever heard that. That'd be kind of interesting.
I only heard that the other day for the first time. Actually, I just thought that they were just government people who run around and scare people. But yeah.
I haven't ever had yet, knock on wood, that I have government come to my house or anything. So, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, well, I guess I shouldn't be concerned then, because you've been doing this for years. This is the first time I've put conspiracy on the show, so hey.
Yeah, I've never. I haven't. Knock on wood here. I haven't had anything happen yet. Not saying that it will, but whenever you're hitting the nail, nail on the head, or you're hitting the right target. If I was doing that right, or I'm bringing out something they don't want somebody to know about, then I'm sure that I would probably see some people coming to my doorstep.
Yeah, I mean, I think with this sort of stuff, you got to use your brains. I mean, there's people out there running around carrying on about secret military technologies, and I mean, I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think that's a fact.
Right.
There's there's always going to be secret government technologies, because there's certain technologies the governments don't want people to know about.
Right. I mean, that's why you hear people that's in the military, they sign like a kind of like a gag order, some of them do, because of that reason.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Because you were in the military, you in Australia, I'm sure it's the same way.
Exactly, yeah.
But here's something that really kind of makes you wonder, some of the stuff that they do, like these drones. Here's a good example, drones. Drones, to me, it's a way for them to use these things to basically, of course, now they have, I know in the United States, they have people that have to control those drones. And, of course, they're over here, they're the Air Force. So the crazy part about it is, I don't know, they're using these drones for the wrong reasons, I believe. I believe they're using them to spy on people for security purposes, to get information. And, of course, if they wanted to fight or do something, they could actually, instead of blowing up, 20 men, they could use the drones on that, which I guess that could be effective in some ways. But the thing that makes me weary is when you hear about, like, vaccinations and stuff like that. There's another one that goes about. Vaccines, over here in America, I don't know how it was over there, but here in America we had a bad, serious cases of like the swine flu, and then all of a sudden, about 4 months ago, they started having a big, widespread virus that was going around that was, they didn't even call it the swine flu or the H1N1. What they called it was a super flu. And
we had a super flu here too.
A super flu? What the hell? And they're like, go get the vaccine, hurry up. And half the time I don't trust what they, I'm going to be honest, I don't trust these vaccines that they have out there just because you don't know what the hell they put in them. People entrust in the pharmaceutical companies to do whatever they do and put in the right vaccine. But, I also know that they have stuff that's not healthy either. And, some of that stuff can cause side effects. So, but, and that's the only thing that would be concerning to me. But, as far as people saying that they're putting, radio frequency chips in the vaccines and stuff like that.
RFID, yeah.
To me, I think that is possible because they could do it. I think with our healthcare system that we have now, I think that, it is, if people want to take a look at this, if you look at the healthcare, just put in there, type in healthcare and RFID chip. See, President Obama, when he put this into order, the healthcare system, what people overlooked was the part that said that they would have to start, once they get on the healthcare system, that eventually they're going to have to chip everybody so they can have all the medical history when they go to a hospital or a doctor's office.
I was about to say RFID. Governments are already talking about doing that now. It's not. I think it's a matter of when, not if it's going to happen. That one.
Right, exactly. That's the key part right there. When is it going to happen? Because something else that people don't realize is there's a company called HealthLink, and HealthLink is a part of the RFID chip system for each of the governments. However, they just teamed up with another company called Steel Vault, and Steel Vault is a company that kind of works kind of like PayPal in a sense. And what they do is
I think we lost.
I hit the button. I'm sorry, I hit the mute button.
No, that's okay. I heard your phone ringing, so I figured you must have heard.
I hit the phone and I said, hang on a second.
I had to grab that because
I hit the mute button.
Because for those wondering, Jerry's actually doing this from work.
Yes. Don't tell anybody that. But the key thing is that the funny thing is that this whole chipping system though is just remarkable that people don't realize that it is out there. People are starting to realize that, it's something that is, that can be used. But the thing is what are we going to do? And of course, this Steel Vault, that's what I was talking about, Steel Vault. Steel Vault is now is like PayPal. It's kind of like PayPal, but what they do is they take your banking information and they can put that money now onto a chip, on the same chip. So let's say that you wanted to go to a store. You could use your chip to buy stuff. Is it convenient? Well, I'm sure it is. It's probably not a good thing. I'm sure it is. But they are using these already. They already have this system put in play that they're using it in, I think it's either the Cayman Islands or somewhere, but in a like a popular vacation resort, there's one of these islands. You can use the chip now. So some people are already chipped with it, using it to pay for like food and drinks and hotels and stuff like that.
Well, that's scary unto itself without even thinking about the conspiracy aspect of that, because there's a lot of fraudsters out there nowadays that are using RFID technology to steal things.
Right. Absolutely.
To actually read people's card details. So how easy are these people going to be able to steal all your money if you've got an RFID chip in you with all your money on
it? I mean, you're giving them access to it.
Yeah, that's it. You're not going to be able to stop it.
No, there's no way to stop it. I mean, once they take the money off there, it's gone.
Yeah.
It truly is amazing how a lot of people don't think about this stuff, but I mean, it's not a lie. It's true. If anybody goes out there to look at it, say, look up Steel Vault, look up HealthLink, and look at these two programs, you'll see that these two are tied together. They just tied them together, and they are using this program over in certain vacation areas to see how people can use them. As a matter of fact, Steel Vault just signed a deal with Disney World, or the one down in Florida. I think it's Disney World. They just signed up with them to start using the RFID chip in bracelets for a whole family. So let's say that you have your children and you take them to Walt Disney World. Well, they give you a chip bracelet. Everything's on that bracelet. Money, your money's on there. You can buy a hotel room. You hear about that?
Well, we've got them at Wet and Wild here. Like, we've just had Wet and Wild open up. Yeah, well, we've had Wet and Wild open up in December just gone, actually, and I actually got a membership for it, and we've all got bracelets that we wear when we go there with RFID chips in them.
So now, is there money on there, too? Like, you can buy stuff?
Yeah, you put your money on it, and all your details are on it, too, because when you scan it, like up on the screen comes all your details.
Wow.
Yeah, and the people in there actually check that you're the person that's meant to have that bracelet.
Right, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I know down at Walt Disney World, when they introduced this to the public, they said it was going to be very convenient, but it was also going to help out with children not being kidnapped as much. So that way, the child would have this bracelet on. That way they could. This is what they said. They can scan the bracelet. They can find out, make sure that child's matches up with that parent and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Can they rip those bracelets off, or do they I mean, are these like, I haven't seen them. Do they look like a rubber band bracelet? Or?
Yeah, these ones that we've got here, they're like rubber bands, and the top part of it is kind of thicker where the chip is, and they're tied around the wrist. Like we have had, we have an annual show here in Sydney where you can actually, when you go in there, you can actually get your kids with an RFID bracelet put on, where if they get lost, they can go on there and your number comes up and everything on there, and they can call you and say, "Oh, we got your child here. They're lost." So I mean, I think there are good parts to the technology,
Well, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and that's what it is. I think there's good parts to the technology of it, and so we have to look at it like this: where there's the good, there's the bad, and the ugly. But it's all there, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see the plus sides of it. I mean, I can. You know, it's like the health link thing with the medical thing. You know, I mean, I even told people, I said, you know, I can see the plus side to it because yeah, it'd be nice to all your medical information's there, so they don't have to look it up and find out where, you know, try to guess who you are or guess your medical information. You come in unconscious. I mean, that helps them out tremendously. But
Yeah.
you know, but let's look at what happens. Like everything else, when the government gets in and puts their hands in it, they look at it for a purpose of a weapon, or they use it for the wrong reasons, and that's where the problem lies. Is once the government puts the paws in it, then you're going to have a problem. And hopefully, you know, that doesn't happen. But I know that, you know, obviously it is, because, like I said, the healthcare program, if everybody looks it up, you will find that you will have to be chipped with an RFID chip. It's going to be put into your arm. It's not going to be a bracelet or anything like that. You have to have it put into your arm. So the truth of that, did you know that, I don't know if you know this, but passports, even the passports out here have RFID chips in them. They're up in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in the corner part of your...
we have a blank page in the... We have a blank page in the middle of our passports that have an RFID chip in them.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else here I tell people to do. I said, you know what? You have a driver, like our driver's license over here in America, we have, and people are like, oh, I can't believe this. There's an RFID chip even in people's driver's license. And what people will go, oh, man, I don't believe that. And I said, really? Well, I'll tell you what. If you can take your driver's license, and if you take it apart up in the, I think it's the bottom right corner, you'll see it. You'll find the chip. It's in there. It looks like a copper-looking wire. And, you know, people say, oh, my God, I don't believe that. Well, somebody did it on YouTube. I think they dissected their driver's license, and it was on there, man. It had the copper in there and everything. So somebody else goes, how do you disable these chips? Well, they said it's easy. Put them in the microwave for like a couple seconds and deactivate them.
I think people are ignoring the actual advantages to having these chips inside a license. What people don't realise is these chips are in their banking cards that are in their wallet.
Right, exactly. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah. Yeah, 90% of what's in your wallet will have an RFID chip in it.
Right. Well, that's what even banking companies like credit cards and that, they're starting to use those chips in a lot of their credit cards, and so that way they can, you know where you're at with the card and who has the card. And I think it's really interesting because wherever there's good parts of it, that in other words, and here's how I believe that if they use it for the right reasons, that's okay. But to use it for the wrong reasons, you know, that's when you get yourself in trouble. Now, if I was to go one step further and talk about biblically, people would say that that's the mark of the beast and everything else. But, you know, truthfully, I have to look at this a different way, too, because even in the older days, people thought that the Social Security numbers was the mark of the beast. So, I mean, you know, people come up with the different stuff as they go along. So, you know, do we truly know what the mark of the beast is? No, we don't. No. So we can't just say, well, okay, well, that we got a Social Security number, and now you get the mark of the beast. Well, now you have, you know, some chip that goes into your arm. Now that's the mark of the beast. You know, so it's truly amazing how people come up with this stuff. But again, there are some plus sides to it, but there are some really, you know, if the government puts their hands in it, then you can have a problem.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'll draw the line when the government tries to put a barcode on my forehead or something. You know, I'll be like, no.
Hey, you know, they might do that since they have the scanner app on all these cell phones.
Yeah, you know, you are not scanning my forehead.
Yeah, there's no way in heck you're going to scan my forehead.
yeah, that's it. You go through airports and someone's got a scanner there scanning your forehead or something. Yeah, that's where I'll draw the line. But I mean, I noticed even with the RFID chips that you got at Wet and Wild here, like a lot of people refuse to get them just because your details are out there when you got an RFID chip on you.
Yeah.
And they may certainly won't put money on it because I think it's an open season for people to take your money. I just do it because it's easy.
Yeah. You know, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But and again, conspiracy stuff's out there. There's some stuff that makes sense. Some of it's a little offhand, like I said. But there's something that I found out. This is something I covered. This was something I cut. Do you remember when this whole thing came out with the Phil thing, with the Duck Dynasty and the whole thing called, remember when all that crap went on? And of course, everybody's like, ah. Well, that was what I call distraction because they, stuff like that comes out, and I think that it's amazing how fast that gets resolved. Like in 2 seconds it's resolved.
Yeah.
Well, they do. I believe that they do this on purpose to distract people, because the funny thing is, while that Phil thing was going on, that following week, I guess, or just a few days after, the Supreme Court passed another executive order. They passed a law basically to where the NSA, there was two things that was passed. Number one, the NSA could have more control of people's email accounts and could have more control of their private information. And then number two, along with that, the other thing was passed, and this is the part that really blows my mind, was that they could use drones for the purposes of to give vaccines to people. Now, people go, how do they do drones and vaccines? Well, they put them in these like little cylinders apparently now. They can do this. They pass a wall, so it's out there. People can look this stuff up. Anyway, what they do is they shoot this thing out above the people. Like, let's say that the drone's flying across the sky. It shoots out like a missile-looking thing. Thing implodes, basically. Has this gas stuff that's leaked in the air. Well, that's the vaccine.
Chemtrails.
So,
you mean like chemtrails?
Well, it's kind of like a chemtrail, yeah, but it's a little more. It's a little more in depth, where it's like an instant chemical that goes into your bloodstream, which is it's not. It's more the vaccine itself. Yeah. So it's almost like saying forced vaccines upon people now.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They can do that now, and it's been passed by the government. The Supreme Court in the United States looked at it and they said, you know what? We believe that this is helping. This is helping. That the Patriot Act has helped get so many terrorists off the streets that we want to continue doing what we're doing, and we want to have more control with that. So even though they take away everybody's rights, they want to continue this, I mean, it's amazing. It really is. To see some of the stuff out there and see our government the way it is, it's just truly amazing. I mean, some of the stuff that they do is just a little off the wall, but
I have to say there is a good aspect to drones. I heard pizza companies here are now looking at having drones to deliver your pizza. And that's a good thing.
You know what? That would be probably pretty cool, because guess what? It'd be like 1 minute or less, or your pizza's free.
That's it. Your pizza no longer gets stuck in traffic jams because it gets flown to you. See, so drones are going to have good things as long as the government doesn't get them.
Well, you know what?
Give them to the pizza companies.
I got to tell you, over on Going Down Radio, Chuck, he put out a website now that is called. Oh my God, I should know it offhand, but it's build your drone or something. But anyway, it's a website for drones, and what you do is you can buy a drone. People can buy drones on the website now. You can go on to Amazon.com and you can buy a drone.
There's a big uproar over that here,
yeah, so people are buying the hell out of these things because they think it's fun. But they're expensive, they're not cheap by no means.
No.
I mean, I've seen it. Have you seen a drone? I mean, I've seen a drone myself, but those things are pretty cool.
Yeah, well, people are using them to spy on people here, and so there's a big uproar about the fact that they're so easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's a big issue because someone's got a hot neighbour or something and they buy a drone to spy on their hot neighbour. You know, so everyone's going, why are these things so easy to get a hold of when they're so easily abused?
Right, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And the thing is that the spying thing, that's what kills you. I mean, everybody knows obviously the NSA, that's not a lie to anybody out here. If you look in the news, what has the NSA done over here in our country that's really done some stupid stuff? Well, let's look at Target stores, for example. I mean, that's a good example of what happened. Over 40 billion people, had their stuff, their accounts hacked into due to the NSA. So that's something that people are going, oh, okay, well, maybe they did it by mistake. Well, duh. I mean, they didn't do it by mistake. They did it by, reality.
My question with the NSA and drones is why do they need drones when they got satellites that can do so much?
Absolutely.
Satellites that can do all that.
Unless, I guess, maybe, I don't know. I mean, unless they figure that it would I don't know. That's what I would think. Using a satellite would be more of a stationary object, but I guess maybe they could have the I do know that the drone that I seen, when I was working here at the same company, I worked over at another site where they worked on our military like Humvees and stuff. Well, at that site, it was so funny because we were sitting there and we were watching the camera, and it was at nighttime. And I look at this, and you see this thing that was flying through the warehouse. So I said, what in the heck is that? I thought it was a model airplane at first. Well, it had night vision, the night vision light on it because you could see the light shining down. And I'm like, okay, somebody's got some really, cool model airplane here. Well, nobody's in the factory, so there should be nobody flying a damn plane. So we went out to look for it, and all of a sudden we saw it flying. It went past our heads, and it looked like a model airplane. And what it did is it did a left turn really quick, and it flew out one of the doors. And what was weird about it is the door had a trailer attached to it, so I guess they didn't expect that to happen, whoever was flying it, but it the top of the trailer and then it disintegrated. It was like it was almost like it imploded, like it totally destroyed everything on that drone, and it was destroyed. It was all little pieces.
Oops.
So I guess they have like a mechanism built into where they can destroy it so they don't get caught.
Yeah.
But I would say that somebody told me they film stuff with it or something like that. They can film.
Yeah, well they've all got cameras attached to them and stuff, so they're all yeah, well used for all the wrong reasons.
Dude, I heard that. Somebody told me that this person was in the military. They said that drones could actually be flown from, like they could be over the United States and fly it over like in your country. I mean, they could be, thousands of miles away.
Yeah. Well, there's really no limit to what they can do with them. Anyway, Jerry, we're getting close to time. Do you want to just let everybody know where they can get a hold of you?
Sure. They can go to the we have a conspiracy radio on Thursday nights, and you could go to goingbeyondradio.com. You can also join me on my Facebook under Jerry Williams as Jerry Williams Demonologist, and then you can also go under JW Conspiracies and find our page there as well. And you can also email me at jerrywilliamslive@gmail.com. And I want to thank you, Brett, for having me on the show. I had a good time.
Well, thank you very much for coming on at short notice. And for those listening, we are going to have Jerry on again very soon to come on and discuss all matters demonology. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
Sure, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, so once again, thanks very much, Jerry. I really appreciate it. I was a bit stuck there, and you came through beautifully.
Hey, man, anytime to help you out. If you need help, just let me know.
All
Yeah, no
right,
problem.
thanks very much, Jerry. All right, well, have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week on Beyond Paranormal Radio. Good night, everybody.
When we call to see the teddy bears are here to play. If you don't come play with us, then we will kill you.
Are you nervous yet?